Hello friends, in this lesson we'll be talking about the crown rule. In last class we have discussed the company rule which started from 1773 till 1858. Now we'll be talking about the crown rule. It is one of the most important chapters of Indian polity useful for civil service, and every year 2 to 3 questions are generally asked from this chapter. So let's begin the crown rule. You see, in last class I have discussed company rule, that's from 1773 till 1858, right? And today we will talk about crown rule, that's from 1858 till 1947, right? In crown rule, you will find number of acts, like you can say Government of India Act, right? You can say 1858. We'll discuss step by step Government of India Act 1858. Then we'll talk about 1861, 1892, then 1909, 1919, 1935, and finally Independence Act 1947. So all these acts I will be discussing here today. So I hope you will get everything related to crown rule. So let's start today's session. You just see, if you talk about the crown rule, it started immediately after Sepoy Mutiny. Immediately after Sepoy Mutiny, the crown rule started, and the very act, you can say, which begins the crown rule, that's your Government of India Act 1858. In Government of India Act 1858, what happened actually? This act is known as Act of Good Government of India. That means here the British intention is clear that after Sepoy Mutiny, we are going to provide you, we are going to avail all Indians best facilities, good administration, and there will be no problem at all for Indians as if. So for that reason we call this is Act of Good Governance or Act of Good Government of India. So 1858 Act is known as Act of Good Government, right? And let's discuss what are those features. What happened here? The Viceroy concept is coming, and Viceroy was Lord Canning. Under this act, Lord Canning became first Viceroy of India. This is very important for exam point of view. Let's check it. What are those other features? You just see here, Government of India Act 1858. This act was passed immediately after Sepoy Mutiny. We know this, right? And what are the features? First feature is it ended the double government. It ended the double government. I will explain here. It ended the double government, means Board of Control, which was created in 1784 Pitt's India Act, and Court of Director, which was created in 1773 Act, now they are no longer available. That means it ended the system of double government by abolishing Board of Control. You can see here Board of Control and Court of Directors. Right? This is the point you have to remember. Second thing is that it established 15-member Council of India, and Secretary of State was created. Secretary for State of India, it was created, and the 15-member Council of India was created to assist Secretary of State for India. This is the point you have to remember. This 15-member council was advisory in nature. So all these things were created under this act. The last one is it constituted the Secretary of State in Council as a body and capable of suing and being sued in India and in England. That means you can say now Viceroy is all powerful. This is the point you have to remember, right? So now we'll talk about the next act, Indian Council Act 1861, then we'll talk about 1892 and 1909. Subsequently, all other acts will be discussed. The thing is that in Indian Council Act 1861, what happened? Here, the budget concept came. Budget actually introduced in India in 1860. So please remember, budget introduced in 1860. However, the budget discussion started in 1892. We'll talk later. Budget was introduced in 1860, but budget discussion started in 1892. We'll talk right now, just after this act, 1861, we'll talk about this, right? So let's begin the 1861 act. You can see here, the first feature of 1861 act, it made a beginning of representative institutions. That means now Indians can participate in the decision-making, law-making process, and it provided that Viceroy can nominate few members to the executive councils. And in 1860, Lord Canning nominated few members to the Legislative Council, like Raja of Banaras, you can see here, Raja of Banaras, Maharaja of Patiala, and Sir Dinankar Rao. You can see here, 3 persons were nominated by Viceroy to the Executive Council. You see, why it was there? Because now inside the council, the lawmaking is very important and Indians should participate. And under this act, Viceroy can nominate few Indians to the council. This is the point you have to remember. Next is your decentralization. We already know centralization started in 1773 Act, Regulating Act, and the final step towards centralization came in 1833 Act. Now decentralization is coming. That means what is centralization? Centralization means when the powers are concentrated at one point, right? That is called centralization. And what is decentralization? When powers are divided to the lower or subsequent subordinate positions, that's known as decentralization. That means you can say powers should be divided, powers should be distributed for effective function of administration. So the concept of decentralization came under this 1861 Council Act, right? This is the point you have to remember. You can see here, it initiated the process of decentralization by restoring the legislative, right? All these things. And it also reversed the concept of centralization. I have already told centralization came in 1773 Act and it reached climax under this 1833 Act. We know this. And now decentralization is coming. So important feature of this 1861 Act, decentralization. So please remember decentralization. Question may come, for the first time, decentralization came under which of the following acts? So answer is 1861. Now next point, under this 1861 Act, legislative councils, new legislative councils were established. New legislative council you can see here in Northwest Frontier province, in Punjab, and which were established in Bengal. It was established in 1862. In Northwestern Frontier province, you can say 1866, and in Punjab, you can see here in 1897. So this is the point you have to remember. First point is representative institution started by associating Indians. Secondly, decentralization started. And third point is new legislative councils were started. This is the point you have to remember. New legislative councils, right? I hope you got this point. Legislative councils. Now we'll talk about next point. This act provided, or you can say now Viceroy is powerful to make rules and orders for more convenient transaction of business in the council. It also gave a recognition to the portfolio system introduced by Lord Canning in 1859. This is very important. Portfolio system. The portfolio system came here under this act. However, it was introduced in 1859. What is portfolio system? This portfolio system. Portfolio system means like departments. Present day you can say agriculture department, finance department. You can say also human resource departments. All these departments were created under this act, 1861 act, right? And next point is ordinance was introduced. Ordinance. We'll check it. You just see ordinance is there. What is ordinance? Let me clear what is ordinance. Ordinance means temporary law. Suppose there is emergency and there is urgent requirement of law. Then what will be done? You just see Viceroy has power to issue ordinance in case of emergency or to meet unforeseen situation. So that's why ordinance is coming. Ordinance means temporary law. Please remember, ordinance means temporary law. And the lifespan of this temporary law or ordinance was only 6 months. Means after 6 months at that time, it will expire. Even today also there is a provision for ordinance. I talk about those articles right now. Right? So apart from this ordinance here in this act, we'll talk about ordinance in the present situation. Ordinance, now the president is issuing, governor can also issue. Ordinance is coming under article 123, present constitution. And 213 is also ordinance. How? I will tell right now. Under article 123, president can issue ordinance. Under article 213, governor in a state can issue ordinance. So ordinance is a emergency tool, or you can say when there is emergency, when there is urgent, or you can say to meet the unforeseen situation, governor can issue ordinance under article 213 and president can issue ordinance under article 123 of Indian Constitution. Anyway, so here in this act, Viceroy can issue ordinance. This is the point you have to remember for exam point 2. I hope you got this point. Now we will talk about the next act. This was 1861 act. Now we will talk about 1892 act. So don't worry, what is 1892 act? You see here, you can see what happened in 1892. It increased the additional non-official members in the central and provincial legislative council, but official majority was there. So official majority was there, right? Official majority was there, but the additional non-official members were increased. This is the thing. And budget discussion started. You just see here, this is the point, budget discussion started. So budget discussion started. Second point is budget discussion started. Budget was introduced in 1860, but there was no scope for discussion with respect to budget. Now, under this 1892 Act, budget can be discussed in the legislature, or you can say in the Legislative Council. This is the point. And the third point is, it provided nomination of some non-official members. This is the point you have to remember. In Central Legislative Council by the Viceroy on the recommendation of Provincial Legislative Councils. All these things you have to remember. Even the Bengal Chamber of Commerce, all those things will participate. District boards, municipalities, they can participate. Just try to understand. In the Central Legislative Council at center, Viceroy had power to recommend, right, members to the House. And in the province or in the state, governor has power to nominate or to recommend district boards, municipalities, universities, trade associations, zamindars or chambers, Bengal chambers, right, chambers to the Legislative Council. This is the point you have to remember, right? However, in this 1892 Act, there was no word like election. That means there was election, but the word election was not used in 1892 Act. This is the point you have to remember. Now we'll talk about 1909 Morley-Minto reforms. This is very important, please remember. Now we'll talk about 1909 Morley-Minto reforms. What is this? You see, Minto was, you can say, Minto was Viceroy and Morley was Secretary of State for India. So that's why 1909 is known as Morley-Minto Act or Morley-Minto reforms. What happened in this act? First point, the members in the Central Legislative Council increased from 16 to 60. This point you should remember, that the members of council increased from 16 to 60. This is the very first point, right? I hope you got this point. It retained official majority in the Central Legislative Council, but allowed the Provincial Legislative Council to have non-official majority. This is the point you have to remember, right? Now we'll talk third point. It enlarged deliberative functions of the Legislative Council at both the levels. For example, members were allowed to ask supplementary questions. So this is very important, supplementary questions, right? So the supplementary questions came here under this 1909 Morley-Minto reforms, right? Next point, it provided for the first time the association of Indians with the Executive Council of the Viceroy and Governors. And Swatendranath Prasad Sinha, SP Sinha, became the first Indian to join Viceroy's Executive Council. He was a law member. So you should remember Swatendranath Prasad Sinha became the first Indian to join the Viceroy's Executive Council and appointed as law member. Next point, it introduced a system of separate electorate. What is separate electorate? Separate electorate means under this act or under this separate electorate concept, Muslims were to be elected, or members of Muslim community will be elected on the basis of Muslim voters only. And thus, this act legalized the communalism. Just imagine. And Lord Minto was the Viceroy. That's why Lord Minto is known as father of communal electorate in India. This is the point, very, very important for exam point of view. So Lord Minto became the first man to be called as father of communal electorate. It also provided separate representation of presidency corporations, chambers of commerce, universities, and jamidars. So I hope you got all these points. So let's understand again what we have discussed. You just see under this Morley-Minto Reform Act, the size of the council increased from 16 to 60. We discussed. Then official majority in the Central Legislative Council was there, and it was allowed the provincial legislative council to have non-official majority. Supplementary questions were allowed. Swatantra Prasad Sinha became the first Indian member in the Viceroy's Executive Council, and he was appointed as law minister, or law member you can say, better to say law member, and separate electorate was introduced. Lord Minto came to known as father of communal electorate. It also provided separate representation of presidency, corporations, and commerce, university, jamindars, all these things. The most important is separate electorate, Swatantra Prasad Sinha, law member, and supplementary question, all these things you have to remember. Now we'll talk about the Government of India Act 1919. What is this Government of India Act 1919? This is very, very important. Please try to understand. This 1919 Government of India Act is also known as Montagu-Chelmsford Reform. Montagu-Chelmsford Reform. Why? Because Chelmsford was the Viceroy and Montagu was the Secretary for State of India. And what are those features we'll be discussing right now? Let's discuss the features. The first feature is, you can see here, first feature is central and provincial subjects were separated. This is the first point you have to remember. Central and provincial subjects were separated. Second point, the provincial subjects further divided into transfer and reserve subjects. What happened in transfer subject and reserve subject? In transfer subject, the governor in a province, right, will be accountable to the legislative council, and he will be taking advice from the ministers, group of ministers. Or in other words, you can say the transfer subjects were to be administered by the governor with the aid and advice of ministers responsible to the legislative council. But in case of reserved subjects, on the other hand, the governor will not be responsible to the executive council. This is very, very important, right? So in transfer subject, governor is accountable to the house council, whereas in reserve subject, governor is not subject to, you can say, accountable to the council. And diarchy, which means double rule, was introduced in this 1919 Act. Very, very important. Diarchy means double rule. However, it was very unsuccessful. And do not confuse diarchy with double government. Double government was introduced in 1784 because in 1773, Court of Directors was created in Regulating Act, and in 1784, Board of Control was created, right? And that is known as, at that time, double government. But here the double rule means diarchy, and di means two, archy means rule. So diarchy was introduced in provinces, which was abolished in 1935 Government of India Act. Anyway, we'll discuss later. And third point, for the first time, bicameralism in two houses, like you can say, direct election and bicameralism was introduced. Thus, the Indian Legislative Council was replaced by bicameral legislative, consisting of upper house like Council of State and lower house like Legislative Assembly. This is the point you have to remember. And next point, it required 3 of the 6 members of Viceroy Security Council were to be Indians. Now you will feel that okay, Indians are participating in the lawmaking procedure, right? These are the things. And here they separate, you see, in 1919, Parliamentary reforms, what happened? In 1919, Parliamentary reform, what happened? Actually, you can say separate electorate was introduced. But in this act, 1919 Act, what happened? You can say the communal electorate was extended to 6 Christians, Anglo-Indians, and also Europeans. This is a very, very important point, please remember. And under this act, new office was created, High Commissioner for India. In London, High Commissioner for India was created. This is the point you have to remember. I hope you are getting all these points. And it also provided for the establishment of Public Service Commission. So UPSC, right, Union Public Service Commission, UPSC was created under this 1919 Act. Actually, it was established in 1926. Under this Act, in 1926, Sir Rose Barker was the first chairman of UPSC. This is the point you have to remember, Sir Rose Barker, right? I hope you got this point. And final point, let's check it. Under this act, budget was also separated. For the first time, provincial budgets were separated from legislative budget, central budget. So budget, for the first time, you can say there was a separation, or in other words, you can say it separated for the first time provincial budgets from the central budget, right? This is the point you have to remember. And it provided for the appointment of statutory commission to inquire into and report on its working after 10 years of its coming into force. So anyway, these are the points, important points you should remember for exam point of view. Now we'll talk about the Simon Commission. However, in other lecture, in other classes, you can check Simon Commission. I have already made a lesson regarding Simon Commission, so I am skipping here. However, I will explain for few minutes regarding Simon Commission. Simon Commission came to India in 1927 because to observe, to analyze what is going on in India. You can see here in 1927 Simon Commission came, and Sir John Simon was the chairman, and there was great protest regarding this because all the 7 members were from British, no Indians participated. Simon Commission came to India for the welfare of Indians, but no Indians were participating. Anyway, you can check my lesson, right? Simon Commission, don't worry. Now we'll talk about the next act, Government of India Act 1935. This is very, very important, Government of India Act 1935. You see, in this act, you'll find 321 sections and 10 schedules. 321 sections and 10 schedules. For your information, I'll tell all these sections or most of the sections of this act became articles in the Indian Constitution. This is the point you have to remember for exam point of view, right? So 10 schedules, right now we have 12 schedules. Anyway, originally Indian Constitution had 8 schedules. Now we have 12 schedules, and 321 sections became also articles anyway. And in Indian Constitution you'll find 395 articles originally, and now it is more than 440, 50, right? Anyway, we'll talk later. So now we'll be focusing on Government of India Act 1935. What happened here? The list concept, transfer reserve list, right, which was seen in previous act 1919. Now you have to understand that all India Federation will be established here. And 3 types of list: federal list having 59 items, and you can say provincial list right, with 54 items and content list with 36 items. This was created. So this is the point you have to remember. And diarchy, which was introduced in 1919 Act, now it is abolished. So diarchy was abolished in the provinces. Provincial autonomy was given. Provincial autonomy was given. This is the point, provincial autonomy you can see here. And diarchy was introduced at the center. So diarchy was introduced at the center. This is the point you have to remember. First thing is that All India Federation. Then talking about list, three types of list, like federal list, provincial list, and content list. Now it's talking about provincial autonomy because diarchy is no longer available here because Simon Commission recommended to abolish diarchy. So question may be asked, which commission recommended for the abolishment of diarchy? However, diarchy was adopted as center. This is the point you have to remember. And under this 1935 Government of India Act, it introduced bicameralism in 6 out of 11 provinces. Thus, the legislatures of Bengal, Bombay, Madras, Bihar, Assam, and UP, United Provinces, were made bicameralism. That means consisting of upper house and lower house, like Vidhan Sabha and Vidhan Parishad. Today you will be definitely reading in newspapers. So this is a thing you have to remember. This is very, very important for exam point of view. I hope you got this point. Right? And another point, it abolished Council of India. You see, Council of India was created. Council of India was created in 1858 Act. We know this, right? This was abolished in 1935 Act, and it extended franchise about 10% of the total population and got the voting right. A Reserve Bank was established under this 1935 Act. These are the things you have to remember while studying all these features of Government of India Act, right? And under this act also, federal court was established. Federal court was established in 1937. Please remember, in 1937. Under this Government of India Act 1935, Reserve Bank and Federal Court was established, right? Which later came to be known as this Federal Court as Supreme Court, and Supreme Court was established in 1950. All these things you have to remember for example. Now we'll talk about the last act, very, very important because now we are close to independence, right? So let's talk about Indian Independence Act 1947. Because in 1947, Indians will cherish their dream, independence, freedom. And this act is the most important and everlasting act because this act, under this act, it is said that this act can't be amended in British Parliament. And it ended the British rule in India. Just imagine how beautiful. So under this act, please remember, under this act, Indian Independence Act, British government declared that India will be independent by June 30, 1948. Actually, this act said that British rule will be ended, right? And there was a proposal that by 30th June 1948, India will be independent. Clement Attlee, who was the Prime Minister, declared on 20th February 1947 that British rule in India would be end or going to end by 30th June 1948. However, we got independence before that. So anyway, we'll talk about the features of this act. Let's talk about the features of this Independence Act 1947. The first point is The first point of Indian Independence Act 1947, it ended British rule in India and declared India as independent and sovereign state from 15th August 1947. And it also provided partition of India. That means India and Pakistan created now, India and Pakistan, two independent dominations or dominions or countries, nations now created under this act. And this Independence Act abolished the office of Viceroy, which was created in Government of India Act 1858. So the office of Viceroy, right? We know the office of Viceroy was created in 1858. Lord Canning was the first Viceroy. Anyway, this concept, the post Viceroy, was deleted, abolished under this act. Next point is, it empowered the constituent assemblies of two dominions to frame and adopt any constitution for their respective nations and can repeal any act of the British Parliament, including the Independence Act itself. That means now Constituent Assembly of Pakistan and India, they can have their own laws, they can amend any law, even this act also. This is the point you have to remember. Next point, it empowered the constituent assemblies. It empowered the constituent assemblies of both dominions, India and Pakistan, to legislate for their respective territory till new constitutions were drafted and enforced. You see, in India, the constitution was not in force. That means it was under process, because the constitution, writing of constitution took more than 2 years. Exactly, you can say 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. So it empowered the Constituent Assembly of both the dominions to legislate for their respective territory till the new constitution is drafted or were drafted. This is the thing you have to remember. And no act of British Parliament after 15th August was to extend either of new dominions, unless it was extended thereto by a law of legislation of the dominion. It abolished Office of Secretary of State for India, which was created in 1858, right? It proclaimed that lapse of British parliamentary over Indian Prince states and treaty relations with tribal areas from August 15. All the treaties were lapsed, and it granted freedom to Indian princely states. Under this act, princely states can join either Dominion of Pakistan or India, or they can remain independent. However, 549 princely states joined, and later also 3 princely states who hesitated to join Indian Federation, like Hyderabad, Junagadh, and Jammu and Kashmir, they also joined Indian Federation. So these are the things you have to remember. It provided governance of each dominions and provinces by the Government of India Act 1935. These are things you have to remember. And it deprived the British monarch of his right to vote, right to veto bills. That means the veto power of British monarch now ended. So all these things comes under this 1947 Independence Act. I hope you got all these points, and repeat it, revise this lesson, and if you have any doubt, you can ask me. Wish you happy learning. Thank you very much.